Good morning, everyone. It is 8:32 on May the 1st. Welcome to our City Council meeting. I don't know about the rest of you, but my allergies are about to make me crazy. So if you think I've been crying, I haven't. It's the allergies. It's the big eyes with the allergies. So anyway, just to remind everybody, please turn off your cell phones. I've already checked mine, so mine is off. And we will go into our prayer and pledge to begin with. This morning we have the Reverend Matthew Rowe, who is the rector at Emmanuel Episcopal Church. If you will please come forward.
Good morning, everybody. It's good to see all of you this morning. And I hope your allergies are doing okay. I learned the hard way that when you've got a lot of pecan pods laying around on your deck in your driveway and you blow them off, you stir up the pollen. And I finally cleared up a little bit this morning, so I'm glad to be able to speak clearly. Well, let us pray. Almighty God, by whose providence we live in freedom as Americans, with pride as Texans, and as neighbors to one another in the city of San Angelo, we pause at the beginning of this meeting to pray for our city, its mayor, its city council members, and for all who live and work here. May all that is said and done during this meeting be in a spirit of charity, kindness, and a concern for the common good. Grant wisdom and discernment in discussion, debate, listening, and voting. And when the meeting comes to an end, may a sense of neighborliness and a sharing in our common humanity lead us to shake a hand, pat a back, and extend a friendly word as we remember what the prophet Isaiah said about your ways being higher than our ways. This we ask for the sake of your love. Amen.
We have the Central High School speech and debate team here to lead us in the pledge. If you'll come forward.
Double stack them. Texas, one state under God, one indivisible.
Just stay up here. Yeah, take that. While we have the Central High School speech and debate team, we will go ahead and do their proclamation. You do not want to get into an argument with this crew. Central High School's speech and debate team has again proven to be one of the state's most prolific programs. Mentored by Julie Sneers and Tim Haynes, the CHS speech and debate team qualified 48 competitors for the Texas Forensics Association state tournament. Central placed 5th out of the 225 public and private schools that competed. The mighty Bobcats racked up 9 quarterfinalists, 5 semifinalists, and 5 state finalists. The duet team, acting team of Michaela Eubanks and Addison Bass were state runners-up. Eubanks also placed 4th in humorous interpretation. Also placing 4th were the duet of Dakota Myers and Alfredo Antu, and Antu in program oral interpretation. Sienna Soto placed 6th in informative speaking. In June, 13 of the students will travel to Florida to compete at the National Speech and Debate Association's national tournament. At last year's competition, the Bobcats had 2 national finalists last year, and 2 was a national champion in prose, and Gracie Wilson placed 4th in the nation in poetry. In UIL competition, the Bobcats won its 11th straight district championship and have advanced 6 students to the state tournament, where only the top 12 in Texas compete in each event. Among them, James Mayville placed 4th at UIL State Congress. Therefore, I, Brenda Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby recognize and applaud the Central High School Speech and Debate Team for its achievement and positive determination to make a difference in our community.
We just want to say thank you to the community for all the support. There's really no way a team this large can do as well as we do without not just our administration and our parents' support, but just the community in general. So we really appreciate that. And thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Yes.
Here is your proclamation. Everybody get as tight as you can. Make sure you can see him.
We have some short ones here in the back that need to go to the front.
If you can't see the photographer, you need to be up front.
But to make a comment. I was just gonna put in a plug for San Angelo Gives. Maybe I'll do it at announcements.
Go Brenda.
You can do that. Yeah, you can do that in announcements.
And not public.
Not public. Yeah. You know, like if someone comes up there and talks about it.
Keep an eye on here. Mary's all right.
Next, we are going to have a recognition of the Concho Valley Transit District. Would somebody from the Transit District come on up? San Angelo's mass transit system has earned well-deserved statewide recognition for the exceptional manner in which it delivers passengers to the places they need to go. The Concho Valley Transit District won the Outstanding Small Urban Transit System Award in March during the Texas Transit Association's annual conference. Over the past 2 years, the CVTD has improved its safety record through hands-on training and safety blitzes that have engaged employees in meaningful and fun ways. As a result, the number of accidents was cut by 1/3 last year. After seeking and instituting operating efficiencies, the Concho Valley Transit District was also able to increase staff salaries and drivers' wages. Lastly, the CVTD has worked with Angelo State University, Goodfellow Air Force Base, wellness homes, and local businesses to increase ridership. There is no doubt that CVTD is on an upswing. This year's award as the Outstanding Small Urban Transit System follows a 2017 honor as the Outstanding Rural Transit System. On behalf of the community, we wish to thank the drivers, staff, and administrators who provide superior, safe, reliable, and friendly services to San Angelo and beyond. Therefore, I, Brenda Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby recognize and applaud the Concho Valley Transit District for its achievement and positive determination to make a difference in our community.
I'll always take the opportunity to say thank you to the city for your governance and for your financial support and the chain of events that has to happen in order for transit to be in San Angelo You guys are the first link, truly. Also, need to announce, because, and at least in part for the good work that Vince did here with us, he's moving up for bigger and better opportunities. And so he'll only be with us here for the next couple of weeks. And so the last thing I'll do to torture him is put him on the mic. Thank you, Vince, for all you've done.
Well, I first of all want to thank the staff. They've done an incredible job. They really have made things happen over at the Transit District. So thanks to them. Thank you to the council members, DeWitt, Gonzalez, and Mr. Harry Thomas, who serve on our board and have been very supportive throughout this process. And I also want to invite the community to use the transit service. It's a safe, reliable, and friendly way to get to where you got to go. So again, we appreciate you. Thank you all for what you do for us.
We are now going to do the proclamation of National Travel and Tourism Week. Diane, would you like to come up? Travel has a positive effect on Texas and the nation's economic prosperity and image abroad. It also impacts business productivity and individual travelers' well-being. Travel to and within the United States provides significant economic benefits for the nation, generating more than $2.3 trillion in economic output in 2016, with nearly $1 trillion spent directly by travelers. Travel is among the largest private sector employers in the United States, supporting 15.3 million jobs in 2016, including 8.6 million directly in the travel industry and 6.7 million in other industries. Travelers spending directly generated tax revenues of $158 billion for federal, state, and local governments, funds used to support essential services and programs. International travel to the United States is the nation's #1 services export. In 2016, travel generated $245 billion in exports, creating an $84 billion trade surplus for the United States. Meetings, events, and incentive travel are core business functions that help companies strengthen business performance, educate employees and customers, and reward business accomplishments, which in turn boost the U.S. economy. In 2016, domestic and international business travelers spent $307.2 billion. Leisure travel, which accounts for more than 3/4 of all trips taken in the United States, spurs countless benefits to travelers' health and wellness, creativity, cultural awareness, education, happiness, productivity, and relationships. Visitors spend more than $178 million in direct spending, $12.7 million in local and state tax receipts, provide 3,100 jobs, and $67 million in payroll dollars in San Angelo. Travel is a pillar of economic growth, creating jobs at a faster rate than other sectors. Therefore, I, Brenda Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, Texas, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim May 6th through the 12th, 2018 as National Travel and Tourism Week in San Angelo, Texas, and urge the citizens of San Angelo to join me in this special observance with appropriate events and commemorations.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, I've been here, I just celebrated my first year here in San Angelo and just am thrilled to have this opportunity. I'm going to ask, I have staff here, and I would like them to come up for the photos. So if Susanna and Amy and Bruce would come too. Bruce is our new president and CEO of the Chamber. Susanna Aguirre is one of our sales managers, and Amy Roberts is the other. And so Linda Burdell is running the Visitor Center right now and could not make it. One of the things I want to share with this audience is the importance of the travel and tourism industry to San Angelo. As the mayor shared, we do have 3,100 jobs in this industry in our community. But if not for visitor spending in San Angelo, every household would have to pay an additional $379 per year in taxes. So the more visitors we have come in, the more they spend, the higher that number can be and the more you can save. So we encourage you to invite people to come, stay here, visit, spend money, and then tell all of their friends to come back over and over again. So thank you very much.
We will now do the proclamation of National Historic Preservation Month. Dell and Lucy, would you please come forward? The month of May is National Historic Preservation Month. The National Trust for Historic Preservation established this year's theme, See, Save, Celebrate. Downtown San Angelo, Inc. has been a vital organization promoting the preservation of history, culture, and significant structures in historic downtown San Angelo, Texas, and has partnered with Fort Concho, one of the oldest preservation projects of its kind in the nation. The City of San Angelo has supported the efforts of Downtown San Angelo, Inc. in its endeavors which have fostered economic development, preserved its history through promotional activities, and preserved the integrity of its historic structures and architectural integrity. Downtown San Angelo, Inc. has been an integral partner with the City of San Angelo in advocating tourism in the Central Business District. Downtown San Angelo, Inc. has received 2018 National Main Street Accreditation for the 10th year in a row, a mark of the success of this community's commitment to preservation. Therefore, I, Brenda Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, Texas, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim May 2018 as National Historic Preservation Month in San Angelo, Texas, and call upon all in the City of San Angelo to support the continued efforts of preservation in our community.
We're very grateful that we have a community that honors its history and its culture, and we're just blessed to have the opportunity to work in this environment. Thank you to all of the partners, especially City Council for their support, city staff, the Chamber. There's so many other organizations that are part of it, our property owners, our merchants. The list goes on and on. I did want to say one more thing. Since 2005, we've been tracking the reinvestment dollars that have been generated by the efforts of preserving our history. And this last quarter, we reached way over $200 million of reinvestment in downtown San Angelo. So we're extremely proud of that. Thank you so much.
We will now do the proclamation of Motorcycle Safety Awareness Month, and I see several people in the audience that should come forward. Come on. Now, someone's going to have to help me with this first. Poderosos, MC, as members of the Region 5 Texas Confederation of Clubs and Independents in connection with the support of the National Safety Council, TxDOT, and local motorcycle enthusiasts, would like to remind all road users that the month of May marks a national recognition of Motorcycle Safety Awareness Month. Motorists are reminded of the frequency and seasonal return of the motorcycle enthusiasts to Texas's roadways during this month. Due to their smaller size, motorcycles may easily be overlooked in regular traffic flow, and motorists are encouraged to always be aware of motorcycles at intersections when performing lane changes and whenever near or passing other vehicles, including motorcycles. Motorcyclists should always operate their motorcycles in a defensive manner and within the rules of the road. Motorcyclists ask that motorists look twice for motorcycles as they drive, both during Motorcycle Safety Awareness Month and throughout the year. Therefore, I, Brenda Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, Texas, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim May as Motorcycle Safety Awareness Month in San Angelo, Texas, and encourage everyone to share the road safely.
Oh, good morning. Good morning, Mayor Gunter, ladies and gentlemen of the council, and all residents present today. My name is Sara Gypsy Serna, and I am one of the many proud constituents in San Angelo whom regularly choose to exercise my civic rights and freedoms as well as responsibilities by voting for elected officials such as yourselves, whom I pray will work to place our community's best interests as a priority. I also regularly exercise my rights and freedoms by getting atop my motorcycles to ride in this area where I both work and live, as well as ride across other states whenever and wherever I am able. So on this day, I want to extend my sincere thanks to our mayor and to this council, as on behalf of the hundreds of registered voters in our area whom also ride, I am honored and privileged to accept the city's very first proclamation recognizing the month of May as Motorcycle Safety Awareness, just as so many other cities across the country have done so for years now. Because whether we are considered as recreational riders, motorcycle enthusiasts, or bikers, we, as well as our families, coworkers, and associates, know that we are primarily law-abiding, tax-paying mothers, fathers, sons, daughters, grandmothers, grandfathers, brothers, and sisters, who all want to make it safely back to our families at the end of our daily travels. It is a consideration that so many who drive in a four-wheeled vehicle often take for granted, yet one that we, who consider ourselves to be brothers and sisters of the roads, respect, because we have watched so many of us be injured or even lose our lives every year due to senseless and careless actions that could have been easily avoided. As we've waited for this day for so many years, I ask that you scan the room momentarily and be reminded the next time that you get into your vehicles, you take the few extra seconds on your journey to remember there's a life riding on those motorcycles. So I beg you, look twice for us, because it could mean the difference between the life and death of a motorcyclist. Thank you.
We'll remember that.
We will now move into public comment. Issues or items that are not on the agenda may be raised by the public at this time. Citizens should speak from the podium, begin by stating their name, and limit remarks to less than 3 minutes. Council members may request that a discussed item be placed on a future agenda. The council takes public comment on all regular agenda items during the discussion of those items. Do we have anyone who would like to come forward and make some public comments? Please.
Good morning. My name is Ginger Moore, and I have questions and concerns. I'm going to read it because I have several about the funding approved by the council for the fire department. And please include the answers in the minutes if possible. When the new fire station number 4 is finished, will the personnel, equipment, and supplies and maintenance be transferred from the old station number 4 to the new station? Will the old station then shut down? And the old station really does need to shut down. I looked at it. It's horrible. But that was question number 1. Number 2 is a new ambulance with EMTs, equipment, and supplies was approved to help support Goodfellow as well as the city. Does the MOU with Goodfellow include reimbursement for the complete cost to the city for that ambulance? including personnel. Number 3, the grant, if obtained for the 8 firefighters, the SAFER grant covers the cost of most of the firefighters' personnel costs for the first 2 years and partially for the third. And then the cost is fully on the taxpayers for $600,000 per year. So will the city reduce manpower to cover this additional cost at the end? Or when it's the third year, because most of it's going to be funded by us, the taxpayers. And the number 4, could fire training be completed through a contract with Goodfellow? Goodfellow has the best firefighting facilities in the world, and I don't know if we can do something, but we just gave them $1 million. So it seems to me like we could look at that rather than building another fire training area. And then I was at Senior Care Nursing Home when the fire rescue truck arrived to take a patient to the hospital. A fire engine came and parked. When the fire rescue truck left, the fire engine left. And it's very expensive. I don't know how much for one run for a fire truck, but is there a federal, state, or regulation that requires this? Because otherwise, the city could save a lot of money by not sending a fire truck when a person falls or when a person has a breathing problem. And the fire truck and the new ambulance will help this. So I see the reasoning for the ambulance. But are we getting our costs back, and do we need a fire truck every time? I watched 4 or 5 fire trucks come and go, and nobody did anything. The EMT fire rescue truck did. And I looked it up, and I couldn't find anywhere there was a federal or state regulation for this. And that's basically it. I just have concerns, and I think the 8 firefighters took me over the edge because that's a lot of money unless you're going to reduce costs. Thank you very much. Y'all
Thank you,
have a great
Ginger.
day. And my allergies are bothering me also.
Terrible. Do we need to tell her to get hold of visit with anybody? Okay. Ginger, Brian Dunn is here. If you'll come forward, perhaps you can address some of those questions. No, we cannot do that. I've just been told. So sit back down. Get out of here. Get away from that microphone. Brian, if you and Ginger could cover some of those issues, that would be great. Okay. We know you do. Is there further public comment? If there's no further public comment, we will go into the consent agenda. I will ask each city council member if there's something that they would like to have pulled from this consent agenda and move into the regular agenda. Billy, I'll start with you.
A couple of things, Mayor. First of all, I'd like to put in a plug for San Angelo Gives that's going on today. So I think there are 117 thereabouts agencies that participate in that. So
170.
107, okay.
170.
Anyway, it's an outstanding way that we can support our community and those who may take benefit of those services. So if you haven't done it yet, consider a donation to San Angelo Gives. And I would like to pull item E from the consent agenda, please.
Lane?
Nothing to pull.
Lucy?
I would like to make a comment. Don't forget to go vote. And I need to pull item F.
Harry?
The only comment I have is if you're going to support San Angelo Gives, please consider the Boys and Girls Club of San Angelo. Happen to be a board member, and that particular organization does a lot of work for the young people in this community. Nothing to pull.
Since we're all making plugs here, San Angelo Stock Show and Rodeo, as a nonprofit, has a spot on San Angelo Gives, but we encourage everybody, if that's not your choice, but we encourage everybody, go give, go donate, and give a little bit back. Nothing to pull.
Okay, Tommy?
Well, since y'all are here, I'm going to, no, nothing.
Mayor, I just wanted to wish a very blessed and happy birthday to Lucy Gonzalez. It was actually her birthday yesterday. We do have a cake in the back after this is over. Yeah, feel free to go get a piece there.
Have lunch, have cake.
There you go.
We have the fire department here with candles. And
Yeah, just in case somebody gets blown away.
Thank you very much.
With that said, we are going to pull item E and item F from the consent agenda. May I have a motion to accept the consent agenda with the exception of item E and F?
So move.
Is there a second? All items on the consent agenda will be approved except for item E and item F. Item E, consider authorizing an agreement between the fire department and the...
Vote.
Oh, we didn't vote. Okay, let me back up a minute here. With that said, is there any public comment on the consent agenda? If not, then we'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, now, Brian, it is now your turn. Item E, consider authorizing an agreement between the fire department and the Texas Forestry Service related to Texas Intrastate Fire Mutual Aid System and allowing the city manager to execute any documents.
Chief Dunn, could you say just a little bit more about that? I have several questions, but from your perspective, say a little bit more about that, if you would.
What this is agreement between the TIFMAS, which is the Texas Interstate Fire Mutual Aid System. This is like in 2011 when we had the Wildcat fire here. You saw all these fire trucks from across the state. Well, what this is a mutual aid system set up by the Texas Forestry Service, and what they do is supply vehicles and position them around the state. We supply the manpower for those vehicles. But what they do, if you get deployed for a TIFMAS incident, they reimburse you for all costs associated with that incident if you're deployed. And it's up to us whether we choose to deploy or not. So if we got deployed, such as to Hurricane Harvey in Houston, they would have sent us a deployment order. We would have told them, yes, we can go, or no, we cannot go. And then they reimburse us for all costs, including if we send staff there and we have to hire overtime to meet our minimum manning standards, they cover all those costs also. So the city is out no funds for this.
Okay, thank you. And you did answer my several questions on that, because I wanted to know if, in fact, the Texas Forestry Service would cover the cost if we had to pay local firefighters overtime to make sure citizens are safe in San Angelo, and then whether or not we had to go, if we have something going on in our area, would we absolutely have to go because we had this vehicle stationed here? So you answered.
It's entirely up to us, and the reason they actually put this in place 4 or 5 years ago, I was waiting on two things to ask for this. One was for them to get their reimbursement system set up well, because when they first set it up, payments were very delayed, and the city doesn't need to be out $100,000 for a deployment. The other thing was we certified all our personnel to blue card level, which means they're deployable around the state. So
That was going to be my question. What is the time frame between expense and reimbursement?
they're pretty quick now.
Okay. Any other
Thank you,
questions
Chief.
for Brian on item E? If not, is there a motion to approve item E?
Make the motion to approve item E.
A second? Any public comment? If no public comment, then all in favor of approving item E, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Item F, consider authorizing an interlocal agreement between the Fire Department and the Concho Valley Council of Governments, CVCOG, to have access to all landlines in Tom Green County for new warning system, and authorizing the city manager to execute all related documents.
Chief Dunn, the only reason that I pulled this one was because I wanted our citizens that are watching the program to be aware of it. Can you please go ahead and explain this for us?
This is has to do with the IPAWS system that we're going to put in place, and I think this is the last bureaucratic hurdle that we have to jump. But for us to get control of the landlines, or where we can send the messages to landlines also, we have to go through the COG, because they're the ones that control the 911 system. So that's the agreement that we're having here today. So once we get that through, we're ready to train. We'd already started training once, and then we figured out that we had to have this agreement, so we stopped. But as soon as this is done, it won't take us a couple days to do our training, and the system will be ready to go. I mean, it's ready to go now. We just don't have access to landlines.
So can you explain this system? So tell me when it's used.
The IPAWS,
What'll happen?
The IPAWS system is what we're going to use in place of the warning sirens now. The IPAWS system, which is Integrated Public Awareness Warning System, will be able to issue text to cell phones, voice messages to landlines, Twitter, Facebook, email, all these things that we can reach out across the broad spectrum and actually let you know what is happening when we have a weather emergency, tornado, a hazardous materials event where we may have to evacuate people, and we can cover everybody in Tom Green County with this system versus the siren system we have now that is very difficult to hear, and you don't know what's going on when they go off. So
The people who like the current siren system, because I guess they've been doing it for years. So this new system, people will, regardless of whether they have a cell phone or a computer, will be notified.
yes, it goes out to everybody within that warning system. And the good thing about this system also, that if we have something in northern Tom Green County, we can issue those warnings to specific geographic areas. It works just like the Amber Alert system. You know, you don't get a choice about that coming. There is no choice. There's no sign up. This goes to everybody. So it's a little bit different than the police Nixle system where people sign up for wrecks or accidents so they know to avoid them. This one will go to everybody.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments for Brian on item F? If there are no further questions or comments for Brian on item F, may I have a motion?
Motion to approve is presented.
A second? Second. With any public comment? If no public comment, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. We will move into the regular agenda. Item A, consider accepting the city's fiscal year 2017 comprehensive annual financial report and single audit. And the presentation will be done by Gayla Thornton or Tina Dursky.
I would like to introduce Ms. Gayla Thornton.
Perfect.
Every year, good morning, Mayor, Council, Mr. Valenzuela, Tina Dursky, Director of Finance. Every year, the city has conducted an audit of our financial statements, and that audit is to ensure that our financial statements are presented fairly and in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. And so we have invited Gayla Thornton, a partner with Armstrong, Backus & Company, to come and present the results of the audit. And I'll be here if you have any questions afterward. We also do have hard copies of both the comprehensive annual financial report and the single audit available for you all as well.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. On behalf of Armstrong Backus, thank you for once again engaging our firm to perform the audit of your financial statements. And also thank you to Tina and all of the finance staff for all of the hard work they put into helping us get this complete and able to present to you. We discussed the audit and your single audit with the audit committee on Friday in more detail. I'm happy to say that this year's audit is a clean opinion, or as we call it, an unmodified opinion. And we had no control deficiencies. And there were several reported in the prior year, and all of those had been corrected in the current year.
Define what that is.
A control deficiency is where there are weaknesses in the controls over your accounting functions so that there might be misstatements in your financial statements. And this year we didn't find any.
Go into further depth. I'm not sure I understand what you're saying.
So within your accounting department, everyone has their role, and they all have processes in place to ensure that the accounting and the numbers are as correct as they can be. And when we do an audit, we consider the functions that everyone performs within the accounting department, and we look for areas that there might be weaknesses in the financial statements, that things might not be reported correctly. We didn't find any this year, which is a good thing. And then any that had been reported in prior years had been corrected. In addition to doing the financial statement audit, we did what's called a single audit, which is required if you have over $750,000 worth of federal funding, and the city has almost $4.5 million of federal grants. So we go in and we audit the internal control and the compliance over those grants, and we didn't find any control findings or deficiencies in your controls over that. So everything was clean on your single audit as well. So, and overall, everything was good this year, and we didn't have any problems. Are there any questions?
Yes, Harry.
Just a real quick comment. First of all, I sit on the audit committee, and so we reviewed this audit last Friday. I want to say thank you to Tina and her team for running a tight ship. Thank you for Gayla and Bacchus Armstrong for doing such a thorough audit. I've gone through several audits with a lot of nonprofits and a couple of audits since I've been on this particular council, and I appreciate the work that is done, and I certainly appreciate our city staff and how tight a ship they run. So thank you.
Any further comment from council? No further comment or questions. Gayla, thank you.
Thank you.
With Tina, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to remind you that we do need action on this item and that it does come with an approval and recommendation from the audit committee.
Move to approve as presented.
Second. Seconded by Lucy. All in favor? Wait a minute. I'm going to ask for public comment before I take that vote. Is there any public comment?
Good morning, Steve Hampton. My question is that how many years has Armstrong and Bacchus done this audit?
This is the 7th year that they performed our audit. We did go out for request for proposal 2 years ago, and so they're in their second term serving as our auditors.
Thank you, Tina. Further public comment? With no further public comment, we will take a vote. All in favor of accepting the city's fiscal year 2017 comprehensive annual financial report and single audit, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item B, consider authorizing the San Angelo Fire Department to be allowed to set up a restricted funds account. This account would be used to cover the expenses and the cost of developing and hosting training classes held by the San Angelo Fire Department Training Academy and to build funds to purchase new props to provide more training opportunities for public safety personnel. Fire Chief Brian Dunn, you're up again.
Morning, Mayor, Council. We're here today to ask you for the ability to set up a restricted funds account. The reason we're wanting to do this is we put on many classes, and there's a lot of people that come from the outside to take these classes or ask us to put them on. Last year, we hosted an Officer 3 and 4 class. We had people from Oregon, California, Washington, Hawaii, Saudi Arabia, and a couple other states in this class. So these people came here and stayed here for 2 weeks in motels, ate. We're one of the few training facilities in the state of Texas that can host that level of class. Last month, we hosted a Tech 1 class, which had 50 people from outside the city of San Angelo that came in for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to learn how to do extrication. And they pay fees to host these classes. What we're asking to do is be able to set up a revenue and expense account so we can put these classes on and build funds, because there's several more props that we need at the training center out there right now, such as a propane car burner, and that's about $50,000. If we can do it this way, we won't have to come ask the city for general fund revenue to pay for these kind of props for us, that we can, with the restricted funds account, that way the money won't be wiped clean at the end of the year, and the funds will be allowed to build up so we can actually purchase the prop, because it may take us a year and a half to get that amount of money.
What's the expected revenue in a year from this training class, these training classes?
At this point, Mayor, I have no idea. I would expect 40,000, maybe more.
Well, how many people have we, in the past 6 months, put through this training?
Well, I can tell you last month we netted $12,000 off that Tech 1 class.
And how many people were in those?
We had 50 from the outside and 10 internal that we basically trained for free. And that was one class.
And so this restricted fund would be, as it is described, a restricted fund, meaning it can only be used for props, for training?
Training purposes, yes, ma'am.
Is there any reason to say that there would be a need to use some of those funds for other equipment within the fire department?
Unless it was training, no.
Do I have questions from council?
The only thing I would say,
Harry, go ahead, please.
The only thing I would say is that I want to make sure, and Chief Dunn has already told me this in an email, want to make sure that this is added to the Blue Book so that all of council can see that. So there's transparency here, so we can see that income. We can also see what those expenses are. Tina has assured Chief, and Chief has assured me that that will happen. So we will see those every month.
Great. Tina, did you have a comment on this?
I just wanted to confirm that, yes, we can account for it that way in the Blue Book. We have similar accounts set up for the swimming pool where any revenue over expenditure is carried over from year to year to meet the needs at the swimming pool. So it's certainly something that we can do, and we will do.
Right. I think accountability is really important. Lucy, did you have a comment? Lane?
I think that was pretty much answered. I was just wondering about if it looks like we're gaining excess over what we need for the supplies, if we have the ability to tap that for our own fire department. So.
I would think so. We have a lot of training expenses, and the more we train, the more those expenses will come. We want to put in a confined space trench rescue area out there. There's a lot of things, and we are having a lot of people ask us, can you do this training for us? Can you do this training for us? Not right now, but we will be able to. We're certified to do it. We don't have the equipment or the props to do some of these things people are asking for.
Tina?
Lane, could you repeat what your question was?
I was just
make sure I understood
thinking,
that.
like, if we look like we're having some excess funds build up from the training, and we have the props that we need at this point, nothing on the books, like
For other areas of the fire department?
Right.
Okay, so this money, if you vote to restrict it, will be restricted for this purpose and cannot be used for anything else without council action, but you can certainly unrestrict it by the same action that you're taking today.
I think that's what I asked a minute ago, so it's a double answer, yes. Lucy?
Chief Dunn, I just wanted to ask you, how many classes did you say you'd have per month, or how long are these classes?
The Tech 1 class last month is 20 hours. It was 4 Friday night, 8 Saturday, 8 Sunday. Different classes are different lengths of time. There's different fees associated. That Officer 3 and 4 class lasted 2 weeks. It's a high-level officer class. And those people were here for 2 weeks worth of time, and they spent time, like I said, in the hotels, eating out. A lot of these people would be from our region that we put classes on for. One of the reasons we're wanting a car prop is that on the volunteer side, and I think my staff has gotten with the State Fire Marshal's office, because they're the ones that regulate the volunteers and tell them what kind of training they have to do. I believe that if we're not already, we will be certified to issue them training also. The fire department here answers to the Texas Commission on Fire Protection, which governs all career departments. The State Fire Marshal regulates them. But for the volunteers, they have to have a house burn, a car burn, and a propane burn. These are things that they have to have to get their training or certification levels. We're lacking that car burn right now. We've had quite a few people ask us if we could put this training on for them that are in this area, because it's very expensive for them to go to College Station or clear across the state to do this.
We work with the CVB to book hotel rooms through them.
I didn't for that class, but it's crossed my mind to work on that for those big classes.
Yep, we need to do that. Accountability. Other questions? Other comments? May I then have a motion to approve item B of the regular agenda?
Move.
Second.
Harry made the motion to approve. Lane seconded. And do we have any public comment?
Thank you, Mayor. Steve Hampton. My question is, we have the Air Force Base who also trains. I was wondering how they apply to this, since we're setting up this account to carry funds, and some of it is for purchases. Is there a chance that we might be able to get loaners from the Air Force Base that will help us in our striving to present these classes?
The props that we are wanting are in-ground permanent props. Goodfellow does have some of that stuff. We can't get to some of it, and most certainly the volunteers around here can't get on and off the base. You're always worried about a lockdown. And Goodfellow has actually asked us to put on 2 or 3 different classes for them that they do not do out there, that we will do at our training facility.
Okay. Further public comment? With no further comment, we will take a vote. All in favor of authorizing the San Angelo Fire Department to be allowed to set up a restricted funds account, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any nays? Motion passes 7-0. Item C, consider a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an advance funding agreement with the Texas Department of Transportation for Project CSJ 0069-07-06- US 87 at West Concho Avenue, consisting of various intersection improvements, including installation of a traffic signal, sidewalk, drainage, pavement markings, and curb and gutter at the intersection of US 87 northbound South Cunningham Street and West Concho Avenue, with state and federal funding limited to the improvements within the state right-of-way of US 87. Russell, you're on.
All right, good morning, everyone. Just to remind everybody, I'm going to give a little background first, and then I'll get into the advanced funding agreement. The West Concho Widening project is it's a one-block stretch between US 87 and Randolph Street, directly adjacent to the YMCA facility. What we'll be doing with this project is widening the street approximately 15 feet to the south towards the YMCA. We'll be relocating a fire hydrant and upgrading the water mains that are underneath Randolph Street and Concho. We'll be relocating TxDOT facilities, the traffic signal there at US Highway 87, and they also have some drainage facilities within that right-of-way too that we'll need to be relocating. The sidewalk that currently exists along the south side of Concho Drive will be replaced. It'll actually be more...
Concho Avenue.
Concho
Drive
Avenue.
is out by the river.
Yeah, that's correct. Concho Avenue, so it'll be actually meandering through there. And the reason for it meandering along the right-of-way is to accommodate for future landscaping and things of that nature to mimic or on our Chadburn project that we're doing also in the downtown area, the landscaping and everything in that area, just to have that cohesiveness between the two projects. But that landscaping and everything won't be done until
How many lanes will be added?
We'll actually be adding 2 lanes to this project. I mean, currently it's just a 2-lane street right now. There will be technically be 4 lanes, and the 2 outermost lanes will actually be right-hand turn only lanes to help the traffic flow onto US Highway 87, and then it'll look a lot like Tuig Street, which is just directly to the north, where as you come into downtown, it has a right turn only street there as well, and I'll show that here in a second in another slide. We'll also be accommodating for a gateway sign in this project to welcome people into the downtown area. And the estimated construction cost for this project is approximately $1.2 million, of which approximately $138,000 or $385,000 will be from TxDOT and will be coming through this advanced funding agreement. So here's the drawing that I was talking about. We have 4 lanes. The 2 outer lanes, like I was saying before, are right-hand turn only in either direction here. We'll be adding, the sidewalks are along here that are meandering. We also have some water mains over here in Randolph Street that we'll be replacing, as well as here in Concho Avenue along the south side.
Russell, so I could get my bearings, where's the Y?
YMCA is right here on the south side.
Okay.
The new First Financial Building is over here.
Okay.
US Highway 87 and Randolph Street. Just to update everyone, we do have plans for this. It is a shovel-ready project. The funds that we'll be using will be the street bond funds to pay for the street rehabilitation portions within city right-of-way, as well as water capital funds that will be used to replace the water mains underneath the street. We're scheduled to let this project in August of 2018, which is just was on our preliminary schedule. We should actually be able to get it out for advertisement a little bit sooner than that. It just depends on, the advanced funding agreement. So part of the advanced funding agreement, which is what we're talking about today, is getting this resolution approved, getting city council's backing on that resolution or on that advanced funding agreement to move forward with this project. It's part of the advanced funding agreement has federal dollars associated with that, and as well as TxDOT funds. And part of the federal requirements are to have a resolution adopting this agreement. And so that's why I'm here today. With that, I recommend approval of this resolution approving the advanced funding agreement. And with that, do you have any questions?
This has been a project that has been out there for quite a long time and something that's been really needed and necessary. There's a tremendous dogleg problem from 87 to Randolph Street where the street finally widens. So has been sort of a nightmare for a long time. So I'm really glad to see this come forward. And I thank Daniel for getting the TxDOT agreement to help fund the drainage issues and some of the complications on 87 with this.
Well, and we talk about, and I think what you're trying to say, it ties in, especially with the Chadburn Street project, and that's something that we'll be talking about in just a little bit. And we talked about the economic development during our planning workshop, and part of the economic development is a downtown. What can we do to really, welcome guests to the downtown? Right now, as you're coming down Cunningham or Bryan Street, there's not really that entrance.
Can't even see downtown.
You can't really see it. So I think if anything, this will be much more welcoming to those visitors when they come down here. They won't be so lost. It's almost kind of a wayfinding on our end as well. So again, I'm pleased that we've gotten to this point. This is something we've been talking about for a few years. But again, as Russell mentioned a while ago, we do highly recommend approval for this resolution.
Harry?
Of course, this isn't my district, so I'm very interested in seeing us get started, so I appreciate the work that's been done on it. But Brenda's been a proponent of this ever since before she was actually on council. So this has been, as she said, in the works for a period of time, and I'm glad that we're close to getting started on this particular project. So I applaud the staff and Daniel working with TxDOT in order to get us moving forward. Thank you.
Other comment, Lane?
Has there been any discussion about getting a turning lane kind of widened on the right-hand side of
That's what I just said. There's a turn lane on the right-hand side.
From Bryant?
Right from Concho Avenue, turning
Are you
right
talking
onto
about
North
on-
87.
That's where I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Right here.
I only heard turn lanes on actual Concho.
Right, we
No,
actually
it's
do.
on two. Yeah.
Right, and that I believe that actually is, and I apologize I didn't mention that earlier. That is a portion of this project. Bryant and that outside lane is actually wide enough to accommodate for that now, so it'll be a striping issue that will.
Apologize, I did not hear that.
Okay.
No, I didn't mention
Double
it.
clarification is always good.
I have
Yes,
a
Lucy.
question.
Yes, Billy.
And maybe I missed this early on, but is this improvement already on our capital improvement plan?
This was added, yes, it was on our, it is on our capital improvement plan, correct.
And so we're just asking to move it to right now rather than wherever it fell out in the...
That's correct, mainly in part because TxDOT has the funding available to work with us on this, because with widening the street here at this intersection here, it requires moving this curb and gutter along right at this intersection, or as I pointed out here. So it requires that coordination between TxDOT and the city to get this widening accomplished.
Daniel, do you have a comment? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Can you go back to the slide that showed the total cost and how much TxDOT is contributing? So are we responsible, the city of San Angelo, responsible for the difference between the 1.2 million and the 384.6 that
That is correct.
And is that the amount that was included on our capital improvement plan, or is
Yes,
that
ma'am.
more than what was included?
No, that's what was included in our capital improvement plan.
Daniel, you wanted to comment?
Yeah, I do want to add, as far as TxDOT does have this money available at this point, we never know when if we delay the project and say we'll maybe do it next year sometime, we may not have the money available a year from now. it's really important for us. What we try to do whenever we get some monies that come in from other entities, we like to leverage that money and make sure when it's available that we have it there. It's not a sure thing that if we delay, the TxDOT will actually have it available later on. They have so many projects going on, so many different changes, that this could change as well. The support for this project could go away.
Do I have other questions or comments from council? With that, do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
A second. Do I have public comment? With no public comment, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Item D, second reading of an ordinance approving an amendment to case SU 17-01, modifying condition of approval number 4 and eliminating condition of approval number 5 for an improved special use which allows an automotive and light truck dealership in the neighborhood commercial CN zoning district located at 508 West 17th Street. John, you're on.
Excuse
Oh,
me,
yes.
Mayor. I've been apprised I may have a conflict, so I
Okay.
need to excuse and recuse
All right,
myself.
Billy, thank you.
Thank you. John James, Director of Planning and Development Services. This is the item that you saw at your last meeting, and it's coming back to you on second reading. It's on the regular agenda because of the questions that you asked, and so I have a little more information for you today. Again, this is the location, Bryant and 17th. This is a residential neighborhood, although this property in question is zoned neighborhood commercial. Neighborhood commercial is generally intended to be, as it sounds, neighborhood-friendly, neighborhood-compatible commercial-type development, which typically would not include something like a car dealership, car lot. In this case, a car lot is actually can be authorized through a special use, which was approved on this site. However, based on your previous approval as recommended by the Planning Commission, a number of conditions were placed on that approval to help make that type of use more compatible with the adjacent neighborhood. I'm not going to read through all of this. This is condition number 4. I think based on the discussion last time, this was just accommodating the request of the applicant to swap out some trees for some shrubs, and I think staff recommended approval of that, and I think everyone was generally okay with that. We can come back to it if you have questions. This is the condition that drew some discussion last time, particularly about onloading and offloading vehicles, as well as driveway access. The current condition would not allow any access to the property from 17th or the alley. The access would be required to be from Bryant itself. As we mentioned last time, the TxDOT has denied a driveway access from Bryant. So without modifying this condition, it would effectively prevent access to the property, at least for a car lot. Any other neighborhood commercial use could develop the property as normal. These restrictions only apply to the use of the property as a car lot. The recommendation that came to you from staff and the Planning Commission was to accept the amendment as applied for by the applicant, modifying condition 4 regarding landscaping and eliminating condition 5, basically removing the restrictions regarding access to the property. That would allow driveway from 17th. It would also allow onloading and offloading of the vehicles for sale off of that street as well. This is just a little bit bigger view of the area. As you can see, most of this is the commercial area. As I mentioned, the property in question is neighborhood commercial, but then it abuts this residential area, and so it is kind of a transition area between the predominantly commercial and manufacturing area to the north and the east, and then the neighborhood back to the south and west. As I said, there seemed to be an agreement to modify the condition as requested on number 4. Really, the options there are on condition number 5. One option is to maintain the condition as is. The original recommendation of staff and the Planning Commission was that that condition was important to maintaining the integrity of the neighborhood and not encouraging traffic throughout the neighborhood. Again, that would effectively preclude a car lot on the site. We could eliminate the condition as requested, basically allowing full access to the site for a car lot, And then the option number 3 we've listed here is modifying that condition to not allow access from 17th, but to allow access from the alley, which would require improvement to basically our parking lot standards. It would include widening the alley and paving it either asphalt or concrete. This is an example of a modified condition. We definitely would want to hear your input on how this should move forward, but as drafted here, basically, again, like I said, only allowing access from the alley. It would require improvement to the alley, as I mentioned. Onloading and offloading would have to be done on the site. So in other words, a delivery truck bringing vehicles to the site couldn't park on Bryant or the alley or 17th. It would have to pull onto the site and offload there.
They couldn't pull into the lot from Bryant?
Correct. As the way we've proposed this modified condition, they would have to pull in from the alley, then access the site from the alley. As this is worded, they would have to find a way to turn around, come back out the alley, back onto Bryant.
Is that possible?
That may be a question for the applicant. This is a small site. Again, what we're trying to do is craft an alternative that could allow that to work. He can answer this better than I can. My understanding is that I think deliveries could be made from, like a flatbed that would deliver 1 or 2 vehicles versus an 18-wheeler delivering 10 or 15 vehicles at a time. Obviously, one of those big trucks, I don't think this would work. One other option we discussed was if you were open to having a driveway on 17th, let me get back to the map of this. This wasn't the draft condition that I just was showing you, but one option would be to allow a driveway off the alley, but also here that might allow deliveries to pull in, stop and deliver, and then pull out and around.
I think if you don't do that, I would have a problem with it. I think you have to be able to access it through the alley, go through the back of it, and access at 17th Street onto Bryant. I can't see us approving something other than that.
And that does, we believe, would solve the problem of it would discourage traffic through the neighborhood because it would provide a way in and out as quickly as possible off of Bryant. Some of the other things that we looked at was, having the access off the alley where a truck could pull in, offload, and then pull out, but that would require them to come out the entire alley and then come one way or the other into the neighborhood, which...
Well, then turning left or right with a big 18-wheeler is a nightmare. You can
Right.
back up traffic forever, right? He pulls, turns, back up, turn. Very complicated.
That's kind of the overview. Again, we're looking for some direction from you all on modifying the condition, not modifying the condition, and how we should move forward.
And right now, how does it stand?
Right now, it says no access off of the alley or 17th.
Ooh.
Given that TxDOT has denied a driveway off of Bryant, that effectively means a car lot can't go on this property without modifying the condition.
Lucy, it's in your district, so I'm going to let you speak first.
I was wanting to hear from the applicant to let him explain to us his business.
Come on.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council members. I'm here to clarify something that's very frustrating to me. And on the Planning Commission meeting on March the 19th.
Mr. Hargraves, will you state your name, please? We need you to state your name. State your name.
Could you please tell us your name, please, again? Not everybody knows who you are.
Oh, I'm Robbie Hargraves. I'm sorry.
And would you pull the microphone just a little bit closer to your mouth so we can hear just a little bit better? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The TxDOT refused us access to the property from Bryant Boulevard 3 times. And the consensus was that they would have to let me access the property from 17th. At which time I applied for a curb cut and an approach, and it was issued to me. And I jumped through the hoops, I did everything according to the city regulations. We had an inspector come out and look at it, and I poured the access. Now they're saying I can't use it. I suppose, I didn't hear everything that was said, but I suppose that they want to thwart loading and unloading on 17th, which is a condition of the special use permit in the first place, that no loading or unloading on 17th would be allowed. I don't see why.
And you have that special permit already.
Yes. Now they're saying that I can't use that access to the property, that I must use the alley, which openings on Bryant Boulevard, which in my opinion would be a much greater risk because the traffic there is 45 to 55 miles an hour with 40 or 50 cars a minute going by.
Because there's a light at 17th Street and there's no light into the alleyway, so you would go through the street, go through
There's no light at 17th.
There's no light at 17th,
But
okay.
there is, if you look right at 18th, there's a car lot right there, and they unload right on 18th. So I'm not sure why, if you unload on 18th, it should be any different than unloading on 17th.
Good comment.
The design for the access on 17th was where customers and visitors could drive in and park in designated parking areas, also for the handicapped. This is not a huge used car lot. I think the idea was to prevent a semi-driver from parking on the street and unloading. That's not necessary at all. To refuse me the access on 17th seems ridiculous to me because Waltz Auto has an access exactly as mine. San Angelo Used Cars, they're just on 15th, has the same thing. So does Auto Wrangler. So does Ray's Used Cars on South Bryant. I don't understand.
Could we have some explanation on why this would be an exception to those that have already been granted access off of those streets into those businesses?
I'm sorry, I have a hard time hearing.
What I ask for is an explanation of why we wouldn't allow you entrance on 17th Street when we allow it on 18th, 15th, 16th, or the other streets. So I'm asking for John James to explain that to council. So stay where you're at, because we're going to let you finish talking. But since we're on this subject, we want that talked about right now, if we could. So just hold on for a minute, Mr. Hargraves. Okay, John?
Yeah, I think the primary difference there is those other sites are up here in the CG zoned areas or possibly in the CGCH, and so those did not require any special approvals for a car lot, whereas this being neighborhood commercial, a car lot's not normally allowed without the special permission.
But he has special permission already?
Well, that's the
Special
special
permit.
use that we're talking about modifying. The special permission came through the form of that special use with those conditions that were placed on it, again, to help protect these adjacent neighbors.
Did those neighbors have any opposition to this?
We did
we ask the neighbors?
Yeah, we do send out the notifications and did not receive any. But again, if you're talking about this car lot here, while there is neighborhood in this direction, it's multifamily zoning there to the south. And then, again, everything around it here is commercial. That's one of the differences.
So because we have zoning already done, we're trying to make this more difficult for him when in reality we've got housing behind the other car lot that's in CG. It looks like to me, as a outside observer, having a hard time understanding, asking him or telling him he can't use 17th Street. From a physical perspective, looking at the entire neighborhood, I don't see why we're making it difficult. That's my perspective.
I think we're making it difficult for the fact that the people, whether they responded to opposition or not, they're saying that they don't want the car trailers or the. I don't think they know exactly what kind of transportation is going to be used for loading and unloading.
So have you had conversations with
I
citizens?
have not, but I know that the last time this was brought up, that was their main concern. But as far as now, no. But you know, sometimes those residents in that area that are in my district aren't really aware of what's going on till it happens, and then they're going, "Why didn't you do something about it?" Or you know, we didn't want that. And so for that mere reason, what I would like to see is coming in through the alley, unloading, and going at West 17th. That would seem to me the shortest route, and not get into the neighborhood, not disturb them.
I'm not sure that you can put an 18-wheeler down that alley.
But he's
and
not
make-
using an 18-wheeler.
Will there be 18-wheelers that come into this business, Mr. Hargraves? Let me ask you again. You want to pull the microphone back down?
In my 59 years in the automobile business, I've never used a semi-transport.
Okay.
Like I said, this operation is like 8 to 15 cars. It's not like Jim Bass Ford, who has 250, or Autoplex or All-American Chevrolet, who do use those things. I have a little 18-foot car hauler trailer that I pull with a pickup. I buy 1 or 2 vehicles at a time, and I usually take a driver with me, which is an old Army buddy, to drive them on the property. The unloading, and I agree with the not loading or unloading on the streets. I agree with that, but refuse me access to the property just doesn't seem rational to me at all.
So you would be using 17th Street just to enter the street and turn into your property. You're not at all asking to unload or load off of 17th Street.
I'm sorry that I don't understand your question.
Well, I think what has been said is that there would be complications if you wanted to load or unload on 17th Street.
No.
But you would be pulling the truck onto 17th Street and then pulling it into your property and unloading within the property, not off of the street.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And then too, I've already got the access. The city.
You have already permission to access your property?
Yes.
No.
To clarify
Let's
that-
just make sure we understand. John James, you want to speak to that?
So.
Yeah, the issue is, that, as I mentioned, the property is zoned neighborhood commercial, and so when somebody applies for a driveway permit, we don't ask what's the property going to be used for. So right now, it's a vacant property, and so a driveway permit can be issued off of 17th. However, the conditions that are currently in place for a car lot would not allow a driveway access for a car lot. And so if he were to come in tomorrow with a site plan, for example, for a car lot, we would ask him to either fence or place bollards or something to prevent access to the property from that driveway on 17th. Again, what he's asking is to allow that driveway. Planning Commission and staff has recommended approval of that. But what we brought you today were options because of the concerns raised at the last meeting. If you didn't want to approve that driveway on 17th, there are some different options that might be possible.
Okay, so the Planning Commission's already approved it. Okay, Lucy, I think
I had a question, John. You know that house that's right in front of that empty lot where he wants to put the car lot? No one lives there, right? I went by there and it didn't look like anybody lives at 510 West 17th, but there is a little house right there.
Like an office or a real house?
It's a house.
There is an existing structure there. It's 12 by 24.
So you're not going to use any kind of, you're just going to use a flatbed more or less to load your cars and bring them
Yes.
in, right?
Yes.
Then you unload and then you go out. And that's what I see. I don't see any problem with letting him come into the alley, unload, and go back through 17th Street and just use a very small portion of 17th. I don't have a problem with
Well,
that.
or
thank
if you
you.
reverse it, what's the difference?
Yeah.
If you enter on 17th,
17th.
go through, and then exit through the alley.
It
I mean,
doesn't- yeah.
it doesn't make any sense to restrict it over here if you're going to do it over here. I mean, what are we doing?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
This. I'm confused.
Well,
You do have the flexibility to do either or. I don't think staff is concerned about whether it comes in 17th or the alley either. All we needed to clarify was he got a permit for the driveway, which was allowed because his property gets that. But since he is using a different use on that property than is allowed, now we have to clear that up for him, and that's what we're trying to do. So coming in 17th or the alley, either one's fine.
Doesn't matter.
Correct.
That's the point. Okay, we're clear.
That's all I have, except I beg you, beseech you to favorably vote for me.
Okay.
And I appreciate so much for you, Mayor, and the city councils to hear me out this morning. Thank
We
you.
appreciate you coming here today.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, council, do we have any other comments or questions concerning item, I think it's D? If there's, John?
Again, I just wanted to point out this modified condition, and I think this would, given the direction it seems to be the way you're leaning, I think if we modified the condition but took out that restriction on West 17th, I think that would seem to get at what you're wanting. It would allow driveways either the alley or 17th, but it still would not allow onloading or offloading on the street. It would have to be done on the side.
That makes sense to me, because I have to say, I think it would be crazy. Anybody pulling out of an alleyway onto the street would be a little more risky, I think, than 17th. So I'm going to make a motion that we allow, I'm not sure how I make this motion, so someone help me with it, but I basically want to make a motion that allows entry or exit from the alley and or 17th Street.
I think it would be to adopt the ordinance with condition 5 modified, just as you stated.
I'll second that.
Any public comment?
If I could
Oh,
add,
yes,
the
I'm
motion
sorry.
also needs to include the requested modification to condition number 4 regarding landscaping.
And with that, I also ask that he have permission to remove the trees and put shrubs for better line eyesight. That is the motion. There's been a second. And is there any, oh, Lucy? Yes.
I just want to ask before I vote, what are we saying? Are we doing, how is that exactly? Are we going in the alley or 17th and exiting either way?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, like a two-way street, basically, conceptually.
Yeah, as I understand it, it would be modified sort of as shown on the screen here, where the egress can be from the alley or 17th or both. And offloading and onloading shall only occur on the subject side.
Right, and there's going to be shrubs, not trees.
Correct.
So there's a motion, there's a second. I've asked for public comment. There seems to be no public comment, so, oh yes, come on up.
Hi, I'm Carol Gober. I really hadn't been involved in this, but I'm just from the standpoint of Mr. Hargrove, is it? I'm just thinking, wow, this is difficult. I can see his frustration. You know, he gets a grant where he can come in his property. I mean, I understand all the legal and different things of it, but wow, this is a lot of frustration, and I felt it for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment? If not, let's take a vote. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Motion passes 6-0. You want to, Lane, you want to ask Billy to come back in?
Yes.
Well, if we need to, would you like to take a 5-minute break since we're waiting? Yes or no, council? I have one head no. No.
We got
Doesn't
2
matter.
items to go. I'd like to get done with them.
Let's just keep.
breaks, Mayor, that's what
Okay, we're not going to take a break, and can I go ahead and read item E while we're waiting? So item E is consider ratifying a resolution by COSA DC approving the acceptance of an Economic Development Administration EDA grant to the City of San Angelo Development Corporation and the City of San Angelo as co-recipients in the amount of $1,250,000 for infrastructure improvements to Phase 2 of the San Angelo Business and Industrial Park. And Robert Schneeman, I think you're here to present to us today.
Are we ready?
We're ready.
All right. Good morning, Mayor, Council, Mr. Valenzuela. I'm Bob Schneeman with the Economic Development Department. Council may recall that we've been working on this grant for a long time, since about June of last year, and we finally got the good news, the official good news on April 11th that we were awarded the grant, but it's for Phase 2.2 of the industrial park, which is shown here. A little enlargement of it. It's basically continuing public improvements around the AEP site located here. So it's providing the street that will intersect with the frontage road here, extend beyond the improvements that are taking place in this area, and then stub out 2 streets here for future extension, and also includes the traffic circle and all water, sewer, all underground utilities and drainage improvements to go along with it. As I said, we started this process in June when COSA DC approved allocating $2 million as matching funds to apply for an EDA grant in either phases 2 or 3. In August, they approved a specific resolution authorizing up to $625,000 in matching funds for Phase 2. And then we had a pre-application filed in September of last year. In mid-November, we got a responsive rating from EDA, which basically meant that the grant was moving forward. But their recommendation included a recommendation that we do matching funds of $1.25 million. So the grant comes to $1.25 million from the EDA and $1.25 million from the Economic Development Corporation. We were officially notified April 11th that we received it, and we had a kickoff meeting with the EDA representative on April 16th. April 25th, COSA DC approved the grant acceptance and signing of the contract with EDA by a 5-0 vote, and staff is recommending ratification and acceptance of funds and execution of the grant agreement by council. Take any questions?
So originally we approved $625,000, and now we need a 1.25.
Originally, we only did $625,000. That was with the original grant application and the original format. The project hasn't really changed that much, but the EDA requirements for approval of the project sort of changed as we went along based on the available funds from EDA. And at that time, you may recall we were going through a continuing resolution process with the federal government where they didn't have a budget approved. They finally wound up with an omnibus spending bill that allowed then these grants to go out. So that's.
And so on this, how many businesses have bought land and/or established businesses in Phase 2? And what percentage is it of the total of Phase 2?
The only business thus far in Phase 2 is AEP. They bought 52 acres, which is about 25% of the available land in what we're calling Phase 2. But we have about 25, probably about 40 acres available in Phase 1, and then we are out of land that has infrastructure available to it. So
On
the intent,
Phase 1.
In Phase 1, that's correct.
So none of this money applies to Phase 1?
Not any of it at all, ma'am. No.
So we have Phase 1 development, not a completion of sewer, water, roads, and then we're moving into Phase 2, where we've sold 50 out of how many acres?
50 out of about 200. But for clarification, in Phase 1, we also received an EDA grant back in 2004, which put in all the streets and all the infrastructure improvements, which allowed us then to be able to sell that land, complete with all improvements in place, so that a company could move in, basically pull a building permit, and be able to develop the land, which is now what we're doing with Phase 2.
Well, I will say the following, that I certainly would not want us to turn down an opportunity to take in $1.25 million in grant money, but I also want to repeat it, build and they shall come does not always work. And we keep spending money on the industrial park there, and we've attracted in some businesses, some of them have been moved from point A to point B. So I'm certainly going to vote in favor of accepting $2.5 million. I would be silly not to, but build them and they shall come hasn't exactly worked.
Just for clarification, we've sold just over $2 million worth of property in Phase 1. But it's taken a concentrated effort, marketing effort on staff's part to do that, and
Those were relocating some businesses that were in the city of were already here.
Some relocations, some that were in very poor facilities, FedEx
Small
Ground, for
facilities,
instance.
not poor.
Well, FedEx for Ground, for instance, was in a pretty bedraggled facility, and they've now got a 50,000 square foot building.
Also, the revenue versus local expenditure, local dollar expenditure for Phase 1 shows that Phase 1 has a net profit at this point. We hope for the same result in Phase 2, and of course,
what would that net profit be?
I don't know, but the revenue exceeds the expenditures over that time frame for local dollars by far, and so we hope for the same result in Phase 2. We've actually started discussions about a similar development at the airport, and we hope for that result at the airport also.
Thank you. Do I have other comments or questions from council? Yes, Harry, you do.
Just a real quick comment. I guess a question more than anything else. Would you be able to sell any more properties in Phase 2 if we didn't develop the water, sewer, and other utilities out there? I think I know the answer to the question, but I'd rather have it come from that side of the council.
We would no, because the one property that might be accessible, we have tentatively identified as a future site for a new substation.
Substation for what?
Electrical substation.
I would suspect that if we're going to develop Phase 2 like we did with the success of Phase 1, we're going to have to put the infrastructure in, and we really need to go ahead and accept this particular grant and go forward with it.
I'd also add the other thing that staff plans to do is once we've got firm bids on Phase 2 improvements, we would then look at the repricing of properties out there to make sure that we're covering our costs.
They would be inclusive of the infrastructure.
That's correct, ma'am.
They have to be. Is that what you're saying, Daniel?
Well, the pricing has been based on value, not based on our cost, and the pricing exceeds our cost.
Thank you. With that, do I have a motion to accept the $1.25 million grant?
Second.
And any public comment? With no public comment, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes 7-0. Item F, consider resolution approving an amended funding plan for the Chadbourne Street Pedestrian Corridor Project. authorizing that the project proceed in phases and authorizing a request for qualifications for professional services necessary to the project. Rick, you're on.
Rick Wise, Council, to give you an update on a project y'all reviewed a while back concerning the Chadburn corridor, which basically the plan was to go from 6th Street or Houston Hart all the way to Washington. And a while back, you approved staff to move forward with some conceptual design work on that and also to go to TxDOT to try and obtain a grant application. So you'll kind of see here just a little bit of a history summary of the project. But basically, it entails, redoing that street totally with the concept of using concrete, also redoing all the curbs, the streetscaping, the pedestrian ways, and utilities. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. A while back, you authorized us to move forward with the TxDOT Transportation Set-Aside Grant application, and that was not for the street elements, but that was for the pedestrian type elements. That grant required a local 20% match. You authorized us to do a 30% match, which would increase our chances of getting it. When we turned it in, we actually did a 25% match. We did receive that grant at $1.96 million. One difference that we'll go over here in a minute is at the time we originally proposed, we brought a funding proposal to you, and we were hoping to apply all the way from Houston Hart or 6 all the way to Washington. The state advised us that our likelihood of receiving a grant of that scale was slim, and they advised us to break it into these phases, which you saw before. And so after we visited with a couple of council members, we crafted our grant application accordingly. With the TxDOT grant, one stipulation is that the project has to be let by 2020, July of 2020. This is just kind of a refresher. We had to do conceptual plans to turn into TxDOT with that grant application, so you authorized us to move forward with Half Associates who was already doing the street work. This is just that conceptual plan that was prepared for Phase A, which is from the river to Beauregard. It includes, of course, a connection from Chadburn down to the river trail system. It's about a 25-foot elevation change there, so that's a major connection item. Keep in mind, these are the concepts that were prepared for that. There were prior concepts as well, I think that Henry Schmidt worked with us on and so forth. So as we're coming to the recommendation later, where we'll be talking about bringing in whoever is going to do our actual construction drawings, that we'll be asking them to look at this information, any prior information, and compile that into our final construction drawing plans. This is a larger section from the river all the way to Houston Hart, and then this going to the south from the river to Washington. So those are the ones that were turned in for our grant. To just sort of summarize where we are now, originally when you saw this come before you when we were going to do the grant application, you saw a funding proposal that we had at the time to try and fund the complete project all the way from Houston Hart to Washington. That, at that time, was comprised of these various funding sources. Since that time, of course, the project has been broken into phases, and some of the funding sources are not available anymore. So I'll kind of just summarize that a little bit now. The MPO dollars, which you see of the $4 million, that was at the time the local MPO had voted to allow $4 million to be used for this, which was an off-system project. Since that time, the state has said, no, we're not going to allow you to do that. So unfortunately, those dollars are not available to us anymore, which is a big hit on this project. Just as a reminder, as you allocated these other things, such as the tiers dollars, those were to be funded over a period of 8 years, I believe, each. So the city agreed that we would front those dollars if necessary, and then those would be paid back. Same thing with Cosa DC. It was a 5-year period of time. The river money is no longer in there. Those were to be used for a bridge down on the river level itself, which isn't happening at this point. And then the others came out of the various funds, depending on how much was accredited to work that needed to be done in those specific areas, like sewer or those kind of things. Our anticipated funding now for Phase A, which is what we're going to ask you to approve today, is that we would still use the remaining 2.5 from street dollars. The MPO money, of course, goes away. North tiers, there would be no north tiers because Phase A doesn't include any of the north area. The south tiers money would remain. Costa DC dollar would drop to 1.9 for this portion of the project. Stormwater funds only use 241. Sewer funds 101. There were no water improvements in this section, so you'll see 0. Hot dollars, there were no wayfinding elements in this, so 0. TxDOT grant drops to 1.9. There were no other grants, so that would give us a total of $7.8 million, which is what we anticipate this phase will cost. What that leaves is, it leaves, of course, the North Tiers money. It leaves some Costa DC dollars, stormwater dollars, sewer dollars, water fund, hot, which leaves us $3.3 million of allocated dollars. What we'd like to do is for you to, one, endorse the funding plan that I showed. I'll go back to that 7 point whatever million, and allow the remaining 3.3 to remain there to be used for other Phase A construction if needed, to go ahead and design construction drawings for Phase B and C if we want to move forward with that. The advantage of doing that is when I apply for a TxDOT grant or any other, if I have a shovel-ready project, I get extra points. So this one, we didn't have a shovel-ready project. We had concepts. So if we want to go ahead and design Phase B and another grant round comes up, which the state's saying may happen, that may give me a better leverage for getting those dollars. So those dollars can be used for those designs or for local match dollars. And then finally, to authorize staff to move forward with an RFQ to go ahead and select who will be drawing up our design documents. So that's it in a nutshell. I'll go back to that funding, which is this one. And I'm here to take any questions or answer whatever you may have.
Do I have any questions from council? Billy?
I do. Rick, on the Tiers North, on the other slide,
First slide. Yeah.
the 957,411, so that would still stand. I thought in a later slide when you were saying your anticipated needs, you were bringing that money back in.
I do. That's a very good question to clarify. In this original funding scheme, the North only funded, there's only a small portion of the project, in this case Phase B, that is in the North Tiers. So while we are not proposing to use it in Phase A, because there is no portion of the North Zone in Phase A, it is in Phase B. So here, where I bring it back in, is when we're funding Phase B. So we really can't use that 957,000 until we're in Phase B. Now we could use it to help with the design work on Phase B because a portion of it is there. So yeah, I'm saying hold on to it for the time when we're ready to do Phase B, if that answered your question.
It does, thank you.
Lucy?
I have a question. So you're going to use the Tiers North money, and that was over how many years?
The Tiers dollars were allocated over let me look, 8 years is what we did. What you approved at the last one was in the North Tiers zone, they would allocate 25% of their revenue for 8 years, and that would go to pay this back. And in the South zone, you allocated 50% of their revenue over 8 years. And so we've kind of done this on other projects like the auditorium, where the city actually fronted some of the dollars and then we pay those back. And it drives Tina nuts, but it works.
My question is the fine, because you're asking for an RFQ on design, but we've designed many times. We're not going to design anymore, right? We're through designing. We just need construction, because we keep spending money designing and then designing and then designing. And we already had one designed and approved by previous councils, and it was only partially executed. And now we had somebody else do some design work, and what is
Good point.
the design, and I don't want any more designing going on. I want a project.
Yeah. And good
Enough
point.
with designing.
There was as the mayor alluded to, there was some history on some prior work that was done with the prior grant that was done years ago, and she makes a good point. I think there was some design work done at that time. It wasn't implemented to the extent of the design because
choose.
the dollars
Yeah.
weren't available and so forth. So that's exactly right. There's two, this last one and the one before, good concept designs. What we don't have is construction drawing documents with either one. They're just the concepts. So yes, the goal is to not redo all that, but take all of that and do the construction drawings, which can then be used to put it out for bid. So
But if we haven't selected design A or design B, how do we have somebody do construction documents because we haven't signed off on design?
we will require that when we go out for RFQs, whoever's going to do the draw, that we decide we want to do the construction documents, we will also put as a component of that is that we will have to hone that down to those elements that we've got two concepts, so we'll have to put either a component where we have another public meeting, and take input, and then a committee that sort of looks at that as well. So to work directly with them.
Because I
on
want to
putting that
make
together.
sure the following happens, is the trees that we planted remain, that the uplighting remain. That was a grant from AEP. The lighting needs to remain as installed already. The trees that have been planted need to remain.
I think those are elements as we work with them. They'll be able to advise us that, yes, well, clearly we need trees, we need uplighting, that's very important. If when they are going in and they're tearing out a section, they may be able to show you that, yes, this is how it can work, it's very easy, we can include all those. They may say, Rick, this small tree is here, we would be better off digging it up, trying to preserve it, because if we try to work around it, it's going to cost you triple the amount than it is. So, those are elements, I think you're exactly right. We can work through with them and say, here are priorities for our community. And we want to make sure that at the end of the day, we have these elements.
The other thing we had discussed in a meeting was that what we wanted to do were some elements that would have been executed from Washington all the way to Houston Hart. For example, two things. One is burying the overhead wires, and number two, creating historic lighting from Washington all the way to Houston Hart, and this does not seem to reflect that.
Now, these prices do not show that. This just shows Phase A, because Phase A is what we are required by the grant to meet. Those other elements, and I'd have to see if Russell or Andy are here, some of those may or may not be covered by future grants. Now, what we want to do is leverage those future grant dollars. So Phase B, for instance, the lighting, what we would like to do is try to leverage dollars we have for additional dollars to get that done. We've found a couple of things. One, the state is talking about another set-aside grant program. We've also found some street components that Major sent us from the MPO that we're going to be looking at to see if we could leverage for the next phases.
Okay, so I'm a little confused. The last meeting we had, everyone in the room, I believe, agreed to say the following. We want some elements from Washington all the way to Houston Hart, and those two elements were the historic lighting as a corridor, total corridor, and burying the wires, total corridor.
I don't disagree. We can add those. I don't know that you will have enough money with these remaining dollars to accomplish burying all the utilities for the entire corridor and the lighting. So those are things I think we'll have to look at from a budget standpoint. As we put in here, this 3.3 can be used for additions to Phase A in addition to what's already on here, or it can be used for those other design elements or to match. So I think that'll be a decision that cohesively whoever you appoint to look at that will have to make as we work through those design elements. But they can certainly be lighting and infrastructure burial can be included.
Harry?
Thank you. My memory is not as good as it was when I was 20 years old, but I have to agree with the mayor. We need to make sure that as we design this, the lighting and the burying of all the wires from Washington to to Houston Hart is consistent. And so how we do that, it makes no difference to me, but I want to make sure that if we're going to work on the river to Beauregard and utilize some of this other money for design, that those designs truly show that same concept all the way down.
And
there are certain things on Chadburn that we may be able to change, but the lighting's not one of them, and certainly we want to get rid of the wires. So however we accomplish that, that's...
And that is reflected in this design that they did. It does it buries the infrastructure as far as the electrical lines and addresses lighting. I think the mayor's question is whether we do that all up front, not just in Phase A. Do Phase A plus all the lighting as far as we can, plus all the burial as far as we can. So those will be the details we have to work out based on our budget.
The preference, as agreed upon with the group, was that we do that. We create that corridor effect. Bury the lines from Washington to Houston Hart in one swap, one big corridor, and the same thing with the lights. Because even if we can't afford to do the other elements, lighting is always a #1 issue. Many cities and historic districts, if they have no funding for anything else, they do historic lighting on their historic corridor. And it creates a huge impact. And we need to endorse that concept as a corridor. Those are my comments. With that, let's see how we phrase a motion here. I would assume we want to create a motion that authorizes you to move forward with an RFQ for professional services for the design, although we're not creating a new design, and the construction documents. But we need to make sure that that is done with the idea that you create a corridor effect with the lighting, historic lighting, from Washington to Houston Hart, and that we bury the lines from Houston Hart to Washington. That would be the motion. Yes.
I think adopting the resolution with that language, that's the only thing I would add.
Adopting a resolution that says that.
Second.
Any public comment?
Steve Hampton. This is the second time this has come up in my remembrance. I have two reasons I object to it. The concept is that you're going to decorate, but in doing so, in that picture that you just had up, you had it will be narrowing the street. You're widening Concho and making a good traffic flow there, and then you're going to dead in it almost, and
we're not narrowing Chadburn.
Well, the picture that I saw in the last presentation, it narrowed it down. It had decoration, and lots of plant life was brought in. I made a comment at that time. It reminded me of a Main Street project that was involved in a town that I used to live in, which had a good traffic flow down the middle of town. People enjoyed, people used it a lot. They put in the Main Street project, which was the same thing. It narrowed the street, and the people bitched and moaned for a long time. Luckily, I was not part of the city council when that was going on, but and it cost a lot of money. So what the people got out of it was a few more trees, but they couldn't get where they wanted to go. What I saw in other concepts, presentation designs, was that you almost have to have a golf cart to get up and down it. So I don't think it might look pretty, but it's going to render your street useless almost. The other is that this is another spending project, and we don't need to be adding to our spending projects. We're coming at the end of the budget time, and we're trying to use up all the money that we've had pigeonholed, it seems like to me. So $8 million project is, for a few blocks, is not worthy of consideration at this time. Thank you.
Do we have any further public comment? With no further public comment, we will take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. We are now going to go into closed session. The executive session under the provision of Government Code Title V, Open Government Ethics, Subtitle A, Open Government Chapter 551, Open Meetings, Subchapter D, Exceptions to requirement that meetings be open under the following sections. A, Section 551.071, 1A, consult with attorney when the governmental body seeks the advice of its attorney about pending or contemplated litigation regarding Templeton construction.
20, 30 minutes, Mayor, I believe.
Okay, for about 20 to 30 minutes.
That's correct.
You got it. Call the meeting back to order at, I'm not sure what time it is, 11:06. And we will, again, we were in closed session to discuss Section 551.071-1A, consult with attorney when the governmental body seeks the advice of its attorney about pending or contemplated litigation regarding Templeton construction. With that said, Tommy, would you?
Sure. I'd like to make a motion to approve ongoing funding for litigation costs for Templeton construction and direct staff to bring back the necessary budget amendment or amendments.
Is there a second?
I'd like to second that.
Is there any public comment? With no public comment, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Item 8, follow-up on administrative issues. Consider items discussed in executive session if needed, which we just did. Consider approving various board nominations, Civic Events Advisory Board, Naomi Vasquez, SMD 4, to a first term ending December 2021. Does council want to approve all of them at the same point in time? All righty. Then Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone, Greg Gaylor, SMD 2, Tiers North, to an unexpired term ending July 2018. Water Advisory Board, Kendall Hirschfeld, former government official, to a second term ending April 2020. Jonathan Jennings, meteorologist, to a second term ending April 2020. And Casey Barrett, a banker, to a first term ending April 2020. And Ben Wise, rural water, to a second term ending April 2020. Do I have a motion to approve all of the?
Move.
Okay, and a second? Second. All in favor? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Nay. Passes 7-0. Are there any announcements in consideration of future agenda items? With no announcements or consideration of future agenda items, I will take a motion for adjournment.
Move we adjourn.
A second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.